Hi, my name is Evan Deardle with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, and today I will be giving a brief introduction to the IrriCAN online decision support tool. This is a project in partnership with the University of Saskatchewan's Department of Computer Science with funding from Saskatchewan ADF. This is going to be a brief introduction. Stay tuned later in the year. We'll be giving a more detailed training seminar in the fall. So to start, um, the IrriCAN home site at www.irrican.com can be reached. And this page on here, you'll click on the register login button. To start, you will, for those of you who don't have an account, you will click on the register here and you will give some brief details. These are just so that we can redirect the website to your fields and your maps that you've already populated, and that way you'll have easy access to your information. So we'll just sign in. When you first sign in, you'll see a default map page of the area you're located in. It usually highlights where your last field you've added or the location of your computer system. There's some options. This is all based on the Google Earth engine, so many of these features are similar to Google Earth. So you can click on Go to My Location. You can enter a town or a city to zoom to that location. You also have a My Fields tab, so this will have fields that you've already created and easily zoom to. So if I click on the Kanapa canola field, it will take us to the CSIDC demo farm where I have some canola trials. And it also has a measure distance, which will allow you to measure distances in areas of polygons. I won't go into detail with that today. So for this demonstration, I'm going to create a demo field, run you through adding irrigation, and then show you what a traditional water balance graph looks like in the IrriCAN system. So to create a new field, I click on My Fields and click on Add a New Field. That will erase it, or that will turn off any existing fields right now and allow me, with this cursor, to select the corners by clicking. And we're going to add this at the CSIDC offsite. And then to close, use the hand cursor to click on the point. And that will close the polygon. And the next step is to save new field. So once you save the field, the add field details comes up. Now all these field details are just to help the water balance model to determine your soil's water holding capacity and the stage of your crop growth. So that's why you'll need the soil type, the crop type, and planting date. The initial soil moisture tab, now the reason we have that is to account for any additional moisture you have from the previous year that carries over. And what this value is a percent of available moisture. So that's the difference between your field capacity and your permanent wilting point out in the field. So for this demonstration, I'm going to add field name, so CSIDC test. Soil type, so these are drop-down menus. You want this as close to the soil texture as possible out in your field, but if you just have a rough estimate, that'll work for now. Crop type, we have a number of crops that just determine the rooting depth at full depth and approximately how long it takes to get there. So for this, I'm going to choose canola. Initial soil moisture content. For now, I'm going to add 50%. If your previous fall had lots of moisture in terms of rain and snowfall, you may want to add that or put that higher, or for instance, in a year where the previous year was a drought, similar to this year, you may want to add a lower soil moisture. But for now, we're going to just add initial soil moisture content of 50%. And planting date, this field was seeded approximately in the middle second week of May. So we're going to select May 12th, but every field's going to be different. So once we have all that information, we click on Save Changes, and that will create the field. So once your field's created, it'll be highlighted with this red line. So then going forward, the new field's now added to my field. So by clicking on it, you can easily zoom to that field. And to get the information for that field, all you do is click within this boundary. Once you click on the boundary, the system starts up by gathering the data. So it's gathering the weather data from an online weather source that we're utilizing. It also is gathering all the NDVI imagery and such. You would have noticed that a page unresponsive message did come up. That's just a glitch we currently have with the browser. If you just click on wait or just sit there and wait a little bit, it should go away and your field should load. So once the field loads, you'll see all the settings that we entered in here. You can always adjust these going forward or make tweaks if something doesn't seem right. So at the top, you'll see a number of tabs. So we'll have irrigation input, the water balance graph or table, a weather tab, and an advanced graph. So for today, I'm just going to introduce you to the basics. So we're going to go to the irrigation input tab. So with the irrigation input tab, it'll bring up a calendar. So today I am recording this on August 4th, which is the Wednesday. So you can go back and add irrigation values to any date simply by clicking on them. It'll bring up a pop-up, and daily irrigation is in millimeters. So we're going to assume that we added 25 millimeters, which is approximately an inch, on June 10th, and then click Save. We can also add multiple times during this entry. But the important part is once you've saved it here, you always have to save changes on the main box. The reason for that is that will ensure that it recalculates the water balance based on your inputs. So now that we click back in, that's going to tell the program to recalculate the water balance for the entire season with those new irrigation values. So again, we will have to wait a little bit while it crunches the numbers and gathers the additional data. So the next tab that we're going to look at is the water balance. So this is the graph that's going to be most important to the irrigators. So this water balance is running from the date that we said was planting, so May 12th, and will continue on for approximately 100 plus days, depending on the crop type, to when we assume harvest is going to be or cease irrigation, which for this is going to be August 18th. So on this graph, you're going to have some important lines to understand. So the yellow line is field capacity. So this is kind of the maximum storage within the root zone. That's why this line goes up, is because this has to do with root zone propagation until a peak depth is reached, and then throughout the season it's pretty much fixed. On the bottom, or zero out, is your permanent wilting point. So that's where the crop would will be permanently impacted by insufficient water. And then we have also added a dry line. So this is 50% of plant available water. So 50% from field capacity to permanent wilting point. So our goal as a irrigation manager is to try to maintain that water level in between here. So as we see, this is the soil water depth. Throughout the year, there's May 23rd, there must have been a fairly significant rainfall of at least 25 millimeters. And then the crop is using that water as it goes down to permanent wilting point. There will be some impact. And then on Wednesday, June 9th, there's another significant rainfall. And this is likely the June 9th value. If you look back, it's June 9th, June 10th, so that's where we've added that 25 millimeters of irrigation. So this is the irrigation volume, and then another irrigation on June 24th. As you can see, we really haven't had too many peaks outside of those irrigation volumes because we haven't had much rain this year, as all of you will know. So again, this is just a very simplified graph that's going to try to mimic what we're going to expect out in the field. So our goal is, as this blue line approaches this dry, is we're going to try to fill up to field capacity. We don't want to exceed field capacity, as that's going to leach out some vital nutrients outside of the root zone. It's not the worst case scenario, but we want to try to become more efficient by trying to hit that field capacity line. So we've also added some extra information. So if you look at this Monday, June 24th, the soil water depth is 34 millimeters, and it shows that we have approximately 15 millimeters of storage available for irrigation. So we could probably add another ½ an inch on this day and not exceed that field capacity. So some additional points on the water balance, you can look at it in a table. So soil water depth, this max is your field capacity, dry is the 50%, and irrigation and rainfall. So you can see rainfall on certain days, and you can see that June 10th we added that inch of rain. Just briefly, the weather tab will give you daily weather data. You can go back to see some historical data. And an important feature here is precipitation. A lot of you irrigators will have access to a localized rain gauge. So you can overwrite what the computer or satellite is predicting with your own value if you choose. Advanced graphs, that's more to do with the calculated KC value for the fields and the ET estimation throughout the season. Finally, what I'd like to point out is that this system utilizes the NDVI satellite data from the Sentinel-2 satellite constellation. That's a European Space Agency data service, and then it's routed through the Google Earth engine and provided free of charge. We can continually use this system free of charge as long as we don't develop a system that we're going to charge producers money, which we do not intend to. So just a brief background on NDVI. So I'm going to bring up the NDVI graph for July 23rd to 30th. Just click on the NDVI box and that will load. So this NDVI map is showing an approximation of vegetative health. It's a vegetative index that's kind of a combination of cropping density and cropping health. So as you can see out in this field, We have some healthy patches more towards the pivot point on this during this week, and some less healthy patches in some areas of known concern. Like this is a sand draw through this field. Some of these are low-lying spots and or where we're having too much moisture, some flooding, or top of the hill where it's very dry and the plant density isn't quite as good. So it's a good scouting tool for producers to find some areas of concern. You can also go to historic maps. So this is for July 23rd to 30th. We should be getting another map soon, usually on weekly intervals. But you can go back in the year. So this is May 14th to 21st, if we'll bring that one up. This is another issue with NDVI maps. So as you can see, this map is fairly gray or non-vegetative. This is because it's early in the year and the crop canopy hasn't started to come through the soil. So NDVI mapping is a great tool, but it has its limitations in that we can't really calculate a true crop water use until there is some vegetation coming through the soil. As you can also see that there's these white areas or these odd shaped areas, that's actually cloud cover. Cloud cover will have an impact on your calculations as well as your imagery. So we're kind of at the mercy of the clouds in this situation. But it still, for the most part, does a fairly good job in Saskatchewan in identifying areas of concern. And we also have historical data from previous years. So we've collected all the data or the system reaches out and populates all the imagery from previous years so that producers can look at year-on-year productivity. So July 24th to 31st of last year, quite a bit darker green. Different crop. This southeast was wheat last year, and this year it's canola, so it's going to have a little bit different NDVI value, but as you can see, it is significantly darker than previous years. And finally, we've added a KC. So this is the KC values that we're going to use in calculating the water use requirements of the field, but it also gives a nicer contrast so you can pick out some of the problem areas a bit better. So with that, I'm going to stop. Again, I want to thank everybody, and if you have any additional questions, you can ask me today or reach out. My email is evan.deardahl@agr.gc.ca, and I will be planning on hosting a webinar this fall and likely in the spring, demonstrating this online decision support tool in more detail. Thank you very much.